I'd like to put a spotlight on William Byrd with a composition which seems to tell us a lot about what really mattered to him as a composer. It is a piece which I would call Byrd for people who like Byrd. I'm thinking of this quote by Glenn Gould where he says that Bach's Italian concerto is Bach for people who do not like Bach. The point being that this Italian concerto is so attractive and in a way so immediately appealing that even for people who do not like what Bach is really about, they find something to really enjoy in this piece. Well, the second ground, the name of this Byrd piece, which I would like to look at now, is not of that category. It is a piece that shows what really is at the core of Byrd's personality as a composer. Let's take a look first at how it's put together. The ground is a form that takes a series of notes as a basis. Let me play you the first few notes of the series. So the whole series repeats again and again, and each time there's something different on top of this basis. It could be anything, so long as it sounds good on top of our series of notes. So you can see why this is a form that is well suited to show the variety that I was talking about last time. Byrd saw the potential of keyboard music to not just be one thing, like a dance, a song, or sparkly stuff. It could go from one type to another at any time. And by integrating all these different worlds, he created the language of the keyboard recital. So there we already see that the first part of this is very much in the mold of the song, and the last bit has some of this dance character. So this is the first iteration. Now for the second iteration, he starts playing around with breaking up the line. So we see that the harmonic progression is absolutely the same, but from these first few notes of the song, we now have a more distinctive motive. And instead of having this all happen in one line, the line is broken up into various registers. And thus we start going into the world of counterpoint. Now, it is a principle of construction that Byrd often uses in grounds and variations, that we have the theme, the basic theme, which in this case is our series of notes in the bass, and on top of that, or around it, we have various different kinds of music, different motives, different characters, and different types of treatment. So in the first few variations of the second ground, we have mostly a contrapuntal treatment. We had the entire musical fabric made out of iterations of. And now we have a similar process but applied to a different tune, as it were. So what's the key to beauty in this kind of process? Well, first of all, it's simply beautiful the way that it works, that the puzzle pieces, as it were, fit together. I think this is something that we must not underestimate or misunderstand. So what's happening here is that Byrd is harnessing the natural ability of things that work and things that fit together and things that are mathematically correct to be beautiful for creating beauty in this composition. Let's keep going. The next thing to get developed is rhythm. The this is the so-called sesquialtera, literally meaning 3 against 2. And the interesting thing about Bird's use of so-called cross rhythm, as you see, the syncopations are falling between the beats and are sort of going against the grain, is that he does this to create complexity more than groove, what we would call groove anyway. Now, you might be surprised to hear me talk about groove in the context of such old music. Well, it does seem to me that what we think of under this loose term actually does apply to 16th century English music. It's a short piece, so let me just play it to you in full. It's by Thomas Preston, and it's also a ground upon 3 notes, La, Mi, Re. You'll find in John Bull's music a reflection of this kind of style. Now, Bird seemed to use this technique of various rhythmical layers rubbing against each other for very different purposes. As I said, it's more to create a kind of complexity. So here's an example later in the second ground of a similar kind of sesquialtera. Notice that our main theme has now migrated to the top. He takes this then one step further, from sesquialtera to sesquitertia. Now notice that all of these things have been based on exactly the same set of or series of notes. And let's return to this question, what are the keys to beauty in this process? So first is that it works. Second is variety. You see, we have now this kind of variety that I was talking about last time that comes all from a single mind. And the third thing, which is so important and so incredible about the way that Bird constructs music, is that through all this variety, through all these things that are clever in the way that they fit together and work harmoniously, is that there is an overall shape, a shape defined by excitement and relaxation. For example, between these two sections of rhythmical excitement, we have a brief return to the song mode. And going through these phases, going up and down, gives us pleasure. And when the shape is perfect, getting to the end and seeing the whole argument making sense is, I would say, one of the most defining kinds of beauty for our mind. Here's the ending of the second round. And when you will hear this in context, it will just make you want to say, yes. So that's the second round. Bird for people who like bird. The point of bird, I suppose, is not to grab you in a violent way. That is not to say that his music cannot be catchy. There are plenty of other pieces which combine pure abstract musical aesthetics with being immediately attractive, evocative, or emotional. But we see that Bird is, at the core, interested in music for music's sake. You see, this piece is not about anything. In fact, it's often even hard to say what emotional state or mood it is in. He puts expression at the service of the art of music. Next time, let's look at the other side, that of John Bull, who wears his heart on his sleeve and puts music at the service of his expression.